Warning, this podcast has stories of real-life events and true crime that happens every day. These stories may contain adult language and graphic or disturbing details not suitable for everyone. Listener discretion is advised.
132 in Bush, I've got him at gunpoint. Check the missiles, we're going to pull back to enter at this time. They're pulling them out.
10-1-1, advise ready for camp.
God!
I'm Tom.
And I'm Chuck.
We are both here together. This is some consistency. By now, so this is some weird time travel stuff.
Yeah.
By now, we will have finalized a discussion on Locker Room. By the time you're hearing this, we will have finalized the discussion on Locker Room. And that episode is being recorded tomorrow.
Right, but for you guys, it's
actually going live tomorrow. Which for you guys was 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. I'm not sure.
Right.
So I'll give you what we discussed and decided.
Mm-hmm.
Should we record two versions just in case we don't go with what I decided?
Maybe.
Or should I make a bold prediction?
This is a prediction into the future.
You'll find out on Locker Room Live tonight if this was a fake prediction, and then you'll know in 3 weeks that it was wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're changing how we release. We've been talking about doing this. We've had some hiccups. Things get in the way. That because of Matt's work schedule and Marco's work schedule and stuff, we can't always do Locker Room Live on the same night.
Right.
And so people have had it like, oh, I didn't know. I miss you guys. And we've tried doing notifications for people. We're telling them to subscribe. So I figured out a way where we are going to sync up the release of the episodes. We will, if we release a War Stories episode, then we are going to go live that night. And the live stream will then be live on YouTube. You can watch it live. But to listen to it, it won't be available to listen to as a podcast for a couple of days later, right? Like you can go watch it on live, YouTube, whatever. And then all the old episodes we might do something else with where I don't know. We'll talk. We'll know what we decided. But either way, if you're hearing this, it means tonight we have Locker Room Live that we decided 3 weeks ago, which we decided, Chuck, coincidentally, the night after, or the day, I should say, no, because it releases the same day. So the day that part one of the episode we're about to do part two of comes out is the same day we went live on Locker Room Live and decided that every time we release an episode is when we're going to do Locker Room Live, so people can know, oh, if a War Stories episode drops,
right,
it's Locker Room Live that night.
Right. So they can go straight there and get it.
Straight there and do all that stuff. So in the future past, we have or will decide to have decided that this is happening or did happen.
So confusing. Hey, just make sure to click the freaking notification bell and all that stuff and that funny mumbo jumbo you do on YouTube. That way, anytime a live drops, you're notified on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube, because we will be dropping on YouTube. So if you if you click the notification bell, you'll be notified. So do that.
And here's the thing: the live, if you want to get it uncut, you got to go live, because if we repost it, there's a live one I got to edit now because there's stuff on it where we talked about a song live and then they blocked our video or demonetized it because we talked about a song live, right? Anyway,
if you want to hear it raw,
right,
be there, be square.
When we decided that 3 weeks ago, we also was the same week that we released the episode with this man, Chris Brewer, with part one with our guest Chris Brewer. Now, Chuck, Chris was kind enough to come back on. And actually, I'm not sure if Chris has a vacuum going in the background.
Nope, it's not me.
Is that you, Chuck?
No, it's not me.
Okay, hold on.
I think it's you. I don't know. I hear it, but I don't know what it is. Probably just feedback of some sort.
Hear it?
I don't.
Okay.
I just hear
we got it. Yeah, just a hiss. Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Let's try this again. So the episode that aired today, or when, was part 1 of our episode, which is part 2 today, which is Chris Brewer. So we've got Chris back. And Chuck, you may remember Chris came on to talk about his latest book. And we had so much fun talking about his first book and some of the stories. And we got bunny trailed and sidetracked talking about just some great stories. Yeah, it was old school. Yeah, I mean, so that episode, for those of you, you can go back. It came out September 3rd. It was episode 305, and I titled it, I Do Believe in Spooks, because this man has served places where you really didn't want people to know it was you, Chris.
Yeah, I did. I still don't really want them to know, but most of them are dead because they got old, so it doesn't really matter that much anymore.
Well, welcome back, sir. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, we're glad you agreed to come back. So I spent so much time talking about, like I said, what went on in the first book that, and that first book, by the way, if you didn't go back and listen to 305, pause it, go back, listen to 305. You'll understand what we're talking about. Chris wrote a book called Old Scroll Ranger, becoming a ranger in the first 3 years of the 1974 101st Ranger Battalion. And go ahead.
75th Ranger Battalion.
Sorry, 70. Man, my eyeballs are not working. Thank you. But here we are. We're talking about the second book. It's been a long day. Did you guys? First day of school was yesterday, and I work in the education realm, so it's been a long day staring at computers. The next one, you can look here on the screen and read it for yourself, Chuck. It's In the Shadows Between the Wars. I said it right.
You got it.
You did.
I was complaining about that earlier. I kept wanting to say it wrong, and
you can read.
This time I can't. This is the one I was having problems with earlier, and I did it fine. And the one I was doing fine, I had problems with. But it's Becoming a Special Forces Operator by Christopher Brewer. And this book is actually the latest one. We had you on here to talk about your latest book, but we talked a lot about your first one that led you to us. So I have the second book. I've only read the first book so far, but from what I gather, the key points or the big two kind of areas that this plays in is what it takes to get to and complete Q school, and what does it take to be successful in SF is kind of like a general theme. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. But you do it with stories about your experiences, and this one starts kind of in an interesting spot, because my understanding is your book on becoming a member of Special Forces starts with you leaving the Rangers.
Yeah. And becoming a bodyguard of all things.
1977. And there's a lot going on in the 70s too. But all of the old guard from the Ranger Battalion left and went out to spread out to the United States Army to bring up the standards, because in 1977, we had a lot of alcohol, drug problems. There was still a lot of morale issues from Vietnam. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of problems, a lot of issues. And that's one of the things the Ranger Battalion was supposed to do: build leaders to go out, bring the Army back up to where we needed to be. And the old guard was leaving. We had a lot of new people came in, and we didn't have a selection assessment program at that time. The Ranger Battalion was selection assessment, and you got it or you didn't last. You know, we went through 6,000 people in our first 3 years to make 3,000 people in our first 3 years to build a 600-man battalion. The rest were either broken or just quit, couldn't hang. And we started to get leadership come in that weren't up to the same standard. So I kind of got dispirited. I got out of the Army, said, I'm going to try to be a civilian, and my dad lived in California, got a job working for a burglar alarm company in Sausalito.
Okay.
He wanted a interesting guy. Spoke with kind of a New Jersey accent, and the name was I can't say his name, but he had a very English name, but loved Italian food and new recipes and all of that, and really didn't want to talk about back in Jersey. You know, that's just we won't talk about that stuff.
Right, right.
Can I guess his name?
You could guess, you might even be right. But at any rate,
Joffrey.
Not exactly. Well, that might have been his real name.
Maybe.
But opened up a bodyguard service working in the Tenderloin area down in San Francisco.
Oh, yeah, nothing going on there.
No licenses, no guarantees, no overhead.
Mm-hmm.
And after about a year of that, and there's a good story on that in the book, I decided I'm going back in the Army. At least they give me better guns.
No shit.
I mean,
yeah.
And you probably need them less than you do in some of those areas with those people.
Yeah, that's true. And you'll find a story about that in the book. But that kind of sets the stage. I was convinced I want to be in the Army.
Yeah, the Bay Area in the mid 70s, nothing to see, folks. Like,
that's probably wild.
They're only like batting cleanup from the Summer of Love and Haight-Ashbury and Manson and what was the concert?
Woodstock?
No, there was the Hells Angels were hired as security for the Rolling Stones. Like there was so many things.
Wild.
The Bay Area was the Zodiac Killer, like the Bay Area in the late 60s, early 70s, especially because correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, you're also talking about early days of Hells Angels after going having a small start in Oakland or San Francisco or whatever, and then now they've kind of started to grow and become this bigger organization. But in the 70s, man, they were still hardcore bikers running dope in the crankcase of their motorcycle. So there was a lot going on to be a bodyguard for in the Bay Area.
Oh yeah, Oakland was banging, man, and I knew people in the Oakland chapter of the Angels too. So yeah.
Oh wow,
there was a lot going on.
Yeah, it's only gotten worse, and I can only imagine what it was then there back then to where it is now. I mean, Oakland is like the number one most dangerous city in I think the country, and
I think it's still Chicago.
No, I think they just redid it. I think it's
really?
I think it's Oakland. I think Oakland took the freaking trophy.
Well,
I might be wrong, but I heard it on the news. So KTLA 5.
So you decide this is not. I'd rather actually go and fight, bad guys in a foreign country than deal with these idiots. And you go back into the Army. How does that look? What is that? How do you do that? What does that look like for you? Did you just make a phone call and put your, uniform back on?
If you've been out for less than a year, and I was out 1 week less than 1 year, you go down to the recruiter. You show him your DD-214 that lists every place you were and everything you did and all your awards and schools. Show that to the recruiter. Recruiter's eyes got big, and he said, "Oh, we can get you back to the Ranger Battalion." I said, "No." I had a bunch of buddies went over to Italy, first to the 509th Airborne Battalion Combat Team, what's now the 173rd. And Italy sounded cool. Hadn't been to Italy. I wanted to try that out, so I re-enlisted for that. And I did the San Francisco thing when I was there. So they flew me to New Jersey. I got there in my bell bottoms with hair down to my shoulders, my Fu Manchu mustache. Went down to CIF, drew my uniforms, went back to the barracks, put on my old uniform that had all my stuff sewn on it, put on my rank. I was still a sergeant because I'd been out less than a year.
Right. They didn't strip you.
Yep. And they wouldn't let me back in the barracks after I got my hair cut and put my new uniform on. I said, "No, Sarge, you can't come in. This is for new guys that are reintegrating." I had to convince the guy that it was me. I showed him a picture of, "Look, dude, this is what it looked like an hour ago."
That's hilarious.
And off I went to the 1st to 509th. And remember now, this was still in the 70s. We had beer machines in the barracks. There was no urinalysis for drugs. Vietnam issues, discipline issues were still going on, racial tension, you name it, it was still all there. And this is what the Ranger Battalion was cranked up, and we were supposed to go out and help fix. So my first night, now they immediately put me on the CQ roster, charge of quarters. You're in the barracks overnight to keep order and discipline in the barracks till the next duty day. And I came in on the weekend, and there was a guy that was there before me that came out, had 2 black eyes. And he said, "Come on, man, get in the first sergeant's office." I said, what the hell? He said, "I came out to get a Coke about 1 o'clock in the morning, and the privates caught me. I thought I was going to die." So, oh, hell no. We ain't having this shit. Got a broken pool cue out of the day room, pulled the desk out by the front door, waited for the next shift to come in from the drinking down in the bars, and they got introduced to Sergeant Brewer. And there's a story about that in the book, but there was no more hiding in the first sergeant's office. And there were 9 or 10 of us from the BAT who were there, and we helped do things. That was when Aldo Moro got kidnapped by the Red Brigade. There was a lot going in Europe. Bader Meinhof was active up in Germany. Learned how to free fall there, and went to something called platoon confidence training in Bad Tölz, Germany, that was run by 1st to the 10th Special Forces Group. And basically that was the Special Forces was running a little 2-week school for conventional units to come down, get some training. They take them up in the mountains, take them out on patrols. And it got too much for the SF guys to do, so they hired guys who were Ranger qualified, especially coming out of the BAT, to handle that for them. But we also got to participate in some of the Special Forces training. And that really got me started on Special Forces.
Wow. I mean, that's a hell of a way to get in. It's almost more of a gang initiation, right?
Yeah, sort of, kind of.
Did we lose you?
No,
Chuck?
I'm still here.
No, Chuck. Can you hear me? Oh,
I can see him.
Yeah, no. So I texted you. My computer battery is having some issues. And it's plugged in. So I'm trying to figure out how I can stay on longer. Because it's going to die and it's going to boot me off, and it's plugged in, and I don't know why. It's
we'll just keep going, and if Chuck disappears, we'll know he'll jump back in. So you go through, and you come back. It's now 1978. There's nothing going on in the world, right?
Oh, no.
It's not like there were a bunch of athletes killed at the Olympics a couple years earlier. It's not like the fall of Saigon was a couple years before that. It's not like what else? The Sudanese Liberation Army.
Prime Minister of Italy kidnapped and murdered.
Yes, right. So it's not exactly. Now you've got. This is right before the fall of Iran, right? This is just before the hostages, right? If I'm not mistaken.
It was right around that time. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you pick a really interesting time to rejoin, especially if you're thinking you want to go into special operations and special forces. So that's now your second time around, and that's how you decide special forces is for you.
Yeah, and remember, this is after Vietnam, and this is before Grenada and the global war on terror. So there's nothing going on. There's no wars. There's no conflict anywhere in the world. Right. Army guys are just hanging out in the barracks. Aldo Moro getting kidnapped. General Dozier got kidnapped out of Vicenza during that time frame. Mm-hmm. And all the stuff up in Bad Tölz. So I wound up at Bad Tölz. I went up to be an instructor at PCT. And one of the things they used us for was long-range reconnaissance. It's one of the Special Forces mission, special reconnaissance. And they sent us to the German Ranger School. And for those who don't know anything about the German Ranger School, Einzelkampfschule, it's about a 4-5 week course, if I remember correctly. But they just put it to you for 5 weeks. It ends up with a 145 kilometer cross-country movement by foot, escape and evasion. And you just go through repeated drills with land navigation where you've got to run at a slow trot if you're ever going to make the time standard, and you can't miss a point. You got to get there, and there's people chasing you. So that was a good setup for SF later on.
So that helps you with the SF in-doc and course and all that stuff?
Yeah, one of the great killer of young adults in the Q course is something they call the STAR course. And it's a land nav course. That one is nowhere near what you go through in the Einzelkampfschule. But there's a time standard. It starts when the sun goes down and it ends when the sun comes up. And you're going to have to cover between 15 and 20 kilometers during that period of darkness and hit all your points. And it's really rough terrain. So that helped a lot.
Nice. I mean, I would hope so. Because otherwise, what are you doing it for?
Yeah, and there's some more things that happened between there and the Q course. I came back to the States. I was a Ranger instructor, went to OCS because it was either 5 years as a drill sergeant or go to OCS, became an officer. You become an officer, you got to have a degree, so I had to go to degree completion. But after all of this, I got to where now I can go to SF to the qualification course at the age of 34.
So now how long did all that take from your decision and said, hey, excuse me, you joined back up. You're saying that's where I want to go. I want to go to the Q course. How do I get there? You go to your college counselor in the Army, right? You get a hall pass, go to your college counselor and say, this is where I'd like to go. And your mentor, your rabbi, whoever it is in the Army, the regs, you read it all. How long between that decision and you actually getting to go at 34 years old?
About 3 or 4 years, because I had to go through a 1.5-year degree completion. I had to go through OCS. I had to have a utilization tour as a lieutenant in the 82nd. I was a platoon leader up there. And then finally, I wind up at the Q course. And the first thing greeting me, they got all the officers together. And the lieutenant colonel came in and he said, I just wanted to let you guys know that the course that you are going to go through is not the course that I went through and all officers went through before me. Yours is going to be harder, a lot harder. It's no longer a gentleman's course. We have something that we're going to start running now that's called selection and assessment. And we're going to experiment with things to see just how bad you want this and if you can hang. And if it's too hard, we may back off a little bit, but you really don't want to recycle, because if you do, you're going through selection assessment basically again before we'll let you start the course again.
So up until that point, every other class had gone through what style of, what did they call it? It wasn't called selection assessment. It was just called
phase 1, 2, and 3.
Okay. And so you just washed out, or?
Yeah, the phase 1 was a little tough. That's got the STAR course, the land navigation course we talked about. And there were some other things that they went through, but primarily the Special Forces course in those days was focused on teaching you what you needed to know. And the MOS phase in particular for the officers was a gentleman course. It was mainly classroom. There wasn't a lot of really physically intense things going on there. And phase 3 is you bring everybody together where you form up an A-team and you practice on an exercise they call Robin Sage, where if you had a bunch of guerrillas that you have organized behind enemy lines, you're going to train them, get them organized into military units, and you're going to lead them out on different types of missions, similar to what the SF did with the Montagnards in Vietnam and what they were supposed to be able to do in Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary against the Soviet Union, if that ever came to pass.
So, as opposed to you go through, it is now selection and assessment. Now, anybody who has been in any kind of a modern elite high test unit and has to go through I guess, the modern form of SF training, right? They understand, even if they don't know the name of it, what selection and assessment is, right? It is
pretty much.
It is this idea of you put everybody through hell and then see who's left, right?
Oh,
and then from there you start looking at like, okay, now what do we actually have to work with, right?
That in a nutshell, yeah, there's a little more to it than that, because the task that you're given, one, it's going to test to see who's physically strong enough to make it through the course. But more than that, it's mentally tough. They'll do things like they'll take you out on a road and they'll tell you, start walking in that direction and keep walking until we tell you to stop. There is a time standard. If you don't make the time standard, you fail. There is a distance that you're going to go, but you don't know the time standard and you don't know the distance. You just walk as hard as you can until they tell you to stop.
Mm.
And they'll keep track and they'll be able to gauge from there. The weak will fall back, cut that off, get rid of them. And then there's the ones who are physically strong, but I'm tired of this. What the heck? They'll stop and take a break, cut that off. The ones who keep charging on, don't give up, keep pushing themselves. Because you'll find out in all of these courses that none of us grow up, unless you're in a really crazy childhood, realizing what your full potential is. They're going to show you what your full potential is. They're going to push you until you drop, and you got to go till you drop.
Well,
and the second part is, how are you going to work with other people when you're stressed out like this? Can you function as a team, or do you bail on your buddies?
Yeah. Are you an individual? That was one of the worst things in the world to be called in our academy class. And I think many people who have been in various forms of military and police training know that. I think it's a shared value or ethic amongst both professions. But the idea is, oh, you're an individual. You're here for yourself. Gotcha. Right. And then it's going to be, nobody wants to be an individual. They want to be part of the team. That's the esprit de corps. And I don't know. Chuck is back. Hello. Welcome back, sir.
It's so bad.
It sounds terrible, but we will keep on keeping on, I guess.
It is what it is. I don't know what's up with my laptop.
Are you wearing your earbuds?
I am, yeah.
And that's the microphone on your earbuds?
Yeah,
it's crap.
It's a producer headphone, so you have more drivers in it for music, but not for audio.
Yeah, no, this
just
is terrible.
waiting for my laptop to charge a little bit more.
All right. Well,
I don't know what happened.
We will press on. We're talking about now. You get to Q school, right? And this, Chuck, he was part of the first Q school where they just decided to implement the latest and greatest selection and assessment, and how lots of cops and veterans are familiar with just run them till they drop, run them till people quit, see how they handle stress. They'll weed themselves out, and then we'll see what we really have, and we'll start actually training them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so you, as you're leading up to that, I wanted to ask you this before we got too far away from it. I was kind of joking about college counselor, but as you're talking about, checking off this, thing, you got to do as a lieutenant, you got to do this, you got to go to OCS. Is this a thing where you just look at the requirements that when it says, here is what is required to go, and now it is incumbent upon you to look at all the stuff you're missing and figure out how to get it? Or do you actually have somebody that you could go to, whether it's a friend or a mentor or a commanding officer, and you could say, hey, this is what I want to do with my career. How do I do it? Right. Did anybody know that you were trying to do all this stuff? Was it something you kept close to the vest?
Yeah, people did know. And remember, this was a very different time. These days, yeah, there are organizations set up throughout the system that'll tell you what you need to train on, what you need to focus on, what you need to do, get ready, because we want guys that are ready that come into the pipeline. So we're not wasting a lot of time. But in those days, Special Forces was becoming a branch. They were making plans to make it a separate branch. Big Army hated the idea. So me and 4 of my buddies who'd also been in the Ranger Battalion, who also went to OCS, while we were at the Infantry Officer School, Infantry Officer Advanced course, getting ready for SF, announced that, hey, this is what we want to do. And the head of the branch, who just happened to be General Lure, who had been the 1st Ranger Battalion commander when we were there, he gathered us all in to shake hands, congratulate us, and you to come talk to me about your future career. We'll get things lined up for you. You're going to go to Europe, get a mechanized infantry command. We'll get you back in the Ranger Battalion. Things laid out. We were his boys. And we told him, well, sir, we've all volunteered for Special Forces. He was shaking my hand at the time, and when I said that, he let go like he'd been scalded, looked at me and said, that's too bad, and walked off. And his chief of staff came up and said, laughing, he said, look, you guys just got to understand, Special Forces, silly forces is going away. We're getting rid of it. We're just going to kill the whole thing. And you guys are traitors. You know, you've turned against us. You're leaving. We're not going to take you back. So basically your career is over. I'm really sorry. And walked away.
Whoa.
Then we showed up at the Q course and they told us about, we're experimenting with something new called selection assessment because we're coming a branch. We're going to make it a lot harder. And I hope you guys get through. Good luck. So we did not exactly set ourselves up for success going into this.
Well, I mean, I'm genuinely shocked because I didn't know they were ever considering separating Special Forces from the actual Army itself. That would have changed so much.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Brits did it. The Brits tried to do it with SAS. They hated SAS. And when SAS became a thing, they thought it was a big joke. And then it became the Special Air Service, and then which is their Special Forces over there. And then they became some
Special Air
nasty
Service
pipe hitters, you know. But they went through a lot of turmoil and tribulations, you know, just to try to set that up. So I assume it's probably a lot of the similar stuff that was going on, where they just thought it was stupid, or, you know, I don't know, people maybe they were thought about getting promoted through it, and, you know, trying to kill it because maybe it was upstaging them or whatever. I don't know what it is, but that would have changed the course of history if we didn't have Special Forces.
At the time, the prevailing thought in the conventional side is, this is BS. We don't need it. We're just going to get rid of it completely. There will be no more Special Forces. It's unnecessary. Congress had a different idea, and that's what led to Special Forces almost became a separate service, like Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, Special Forces. But
no way! Wow.
That's what I'm saying. I never even heard of that.
At the last moment, they decided that's a little bit too much. So instead, we're going to make Special Operations Command, U.S. SOCOM, which would be a joint command and would have its own budget, independent from the Army, the Air Force, the Marine Corps, all of them. So it almost was like a separate service.
Right.
But we would still wear our own uniforms. So
like Space Force is with Air Force.
No, I'm not sure where they're at on that one. They're getting their own uniforms. They're getting their own budget.
You would not have gotten that if it had separated.
If it had separated, yeah, we'd have been
right. That's what I mean.
Separated.
So it's almost like what happened when the Air Force got stood up out of the U.S. Air Corps, Army Air Corps.
It would have been more like that.
What's happening now with Space Force getting stood up out of the U.S. Air Force? This would have been the U.S. Special Operations Command, or whatever they would have called it, getting stood up as a separate branch from the U.S. Army.
So it's a little weird because Army Rangers, U.S. Special Forces are still in the Army, but they fall under U.S. SOCOM. And there's a couple of intermediate headquarters between. You have Air Force Special Operations. It's got the MH series helicopters. the aircraft, the M series aircraft. Spectre falls underneath that. Marines have got their own. They couldn't be left out. They got their own Spec Ops Raiders now. Navy SEALs fall under that. Yep.
Yeah. So now you've kind of covered, I think, what it takes to get to Q school. What does it take to finish it and be successful? Because now we're talking about you get out. You said you were 34 when you went in, 35 when you came out, and you subsequently. What's that?
That's a really long school.
It's at least a year. For some of the MOSs, it's longer than that.
Right. And so this book covers what it took you to get through that. But then now at 34 years old, you do, again, as we talked about before, some pretty crazy fun stuff in some pretty crazy countries where you really don't want people to know who you are. And this is when you go to Colombia, right? Like this is, so for those of you who don't know or didn't listen to the episode, Chris has done some crazy stuff in some crazy places around this crazy world. And you went there so you get out of Q course, right? And then how long is it before you go to Colombia?
Just a matter of a couple of months. We'd gone down to I went to 7th Special Forces Group. Language school was part of it, so I had to learn some Spanish. Mm-hmm. And we'd just gone down to Costa Rica to do a site survey, to set up a training site to work with the Costa Rican National Police. Got back, was having a beer, looking at the TV, and it wasn't real time. This had happened like a day or two ago, but I saw Galan, who was a presidential candidate for Colombia, getting whacked on TV by Escobar's the Sicarios. Just machine gunned him right off the stage. And I was looking at that and I'm going, man, somebody's going to get a phone call. And I swear to God, the phone rang. And we had a call that was from the group.
Somebody's going to get a phone call. Ring, ring. You did that to yourself, my good man.
Yep. Well, not just me. All the team leaders who were 7th group had 3 battalions. 2 were at Fort Bragg. 1 was in Panama. And Panama had received a mission. They looked at it and said, no, we ain't doing that. So it came up to Fort Bragg. They called all the team leaders who were in Fort Bragg at the time into group headquarters to get a brief. And basically, President Bush the first had stood up and said, we're going to support Colombia in their fight against the drug war, the good drug cartels. We're going to give them whatever they need, but we're not going to send combat troops. We will not put people on the ground.
Right.
One of the things they asked for was we need combat medics. We don't have any medics with our military. And the guys don't want to go out in the jungle to look for these drug cartels because if they get wounded, they die. There's no medical treatment. So with the mission, well, you also have to remember that in Bogota at that time, the cartels were carrying out hits, mainly in the south part of the city. They were blowing things up. They were shooting people. They were shooting cops. The military was kind of cooperating with the cartels, but not really. The cops were kind of not really, because killing Galan had put everything in a different category. So the cartels were trying to push them really hard that you need to back off. And going into Bogota at that time was like going into Beirut in the same period. So you couldn't put in regular doctors and medics because we had something called Security Assistance Training Management Office that would do stuff like that. So they came to Special Forces, but it would have required 6 medics, and you have 2 medics on an A team. That would have pulled the medics off 3 A teams and made them non-mission capable. So 3rd Battalion said, no, we ain't touching that. So it came to us, and I held my hand up because I'd been a 91B medic myself as a private in the 20th SF National Guard when I was going to college. I wasn't SF qualified, but I went to the medical course. And I said, I have 2 18 Delta medics on my team right now. That's 3. My 18 Fox Intel Sergeant used to be a Delta. That's 4. The commo guy, we'll have him do basic first aid classes. That's 5. And my team sergeant will set up the instructor course to teach them how to be instructors. We got a 6-man team. We all tested out 2+ on Spanish. We can handle it, and we got the job.
Improvise, adapt, and overcome. There you go.
But we were combat troops. Special Forces is a combat MOS. So they transferred us from Special Forces to SATMO, Security Assistance Training. It's a logistics unit. So we were transferred on orders to that. And then under orders from SATMO, we flew into Bogota, commercial air, civilian clothes, no guns, and got to the embassy. And the RSO said, guys, you're going to be working in the south side of Bogota where all the fighting's going on. Here's a 9mm Beretta and a box of 50 rounds of ammunition. We'll drive you down there once, but we ain't coming back down there again until 6 months from now when you're ready to come out. Let us know if you're still alive about once a week. And that was all the supervision we had. Go figure it out.
Right. And that's why the school takes a year. Oh man. Okay, so now this book covers a lot. And I want to make sure we talk about your favorite points as we start to run out of time again, because this is so easy to do, talking to you about this fun stuff. You're there, you end up in Panama, then you end up in Okinawa, then you end up in the Philippines, where we never sent anybody and you weren't there, right? And then you end up hiding out as dressed as hippies in Korea.
Yeah,
right?
Sort of, kind of.
And then ultimately, after years and years and years in this kind of, Special Forces clandestine service, this book culminates with you basically kind of retiring from the military and takes you into where you're at now. And, it opens up to the period of time between the Army and where you are now, which there's a lot of stuff in there too. So how do you I guess, give us the high points, or what are your favorite moments as you look back between, dealing with that stuff in Colombia initially when you're right out of the Q course, and then you get all this other stuff going on that really, like, nobody else is going anywhere. You're the only one going anywhere.
Yeah, and it's we weren't the only ones by any means. There was
but you get what I mean, right? Like,
yeah,
it wasn't just your team, but the Army we weren't at war with anybody, right? We didn't, like, Grenada was the biggest thing we had at one point.
Well, Panama Just Cause happened while we were in Colombia. We had got a call from the embassy that there was you ever read Clear and Present Danger by Tom Clancy?
Oh yeah. Love it.
Where there was this American military unit in the valley between Bogota and Medellin that were getting on the drug planes that were taking off.
Right. And so for those of you that don't know, in Clear and Present Danger, there's an off-the-books operation of U.S. Special Forces blowing up drug cartel shipments, and they're not wearing any patches, and there's no serial numbers on any weapons, and they don't exist. And when they try to get support to pull them out because things go sideways, their own government sells them out and they get killed. That's the gist of the book.
But even then, Big Army didn't like, even in the book, there was no Special Forces there. That was 10th Mountain, all Hispanic guys that spoke Spanish. And that was part of their plausible deniability.
Right.
We got the phone. There was a United States Air Force unit that had a radar unit in that valley. This is real life. And they were picking up those drug planes that were coming off those strips, and they were handing them off to.
It was a top secret radar unit.
Top secret special compartmented information code word. It took 8 months to get this released for publication, and only because it's been 40 years ago.
Right.
But they were handing them off not only to the Colombian Air Force, but to the U.S. Navy that was offshore. And Escobar knew about it, and he was pissed. And he said, if you don't shut it off, I'm going to come in and I'm going to kill all the gringos. We got a call can you guys go out there and help? And I only had 6 guys. We had Beretta pistols. But we went out there. We got some guns. We did some things. Escobar decided that he really didn't want to come in there anyway, and he backed off. That's in the book. That's a good story. We came out of there.
Yeah, I remember we talked about that one a little bit.
Yeah. But we came out of there. We're home for 2 weeks. They wouldn't let us go to Just Cause in Panama because we were on a mission. But as soon as we came back 2 weeks later, they sent us to Panama after Just Cause was over. And we were on another super secret classified mission, civilian clothes. Here's a Beretta pistol, carry it concealed underneath, and put us out in 2s and 4s across the whole country with the Panamanian National Guard that we'd been shooting and killing 2 weeks before that, and said, okay, the war's over, give them their guns back, and they're cops now, so they're going to be a national police, but you stay here. If they try to revolt and take over the country again, try to let us know before they kill you. You're tripwires. And we had 6 months of that.
Wow.
And they did. And there was a coup attempt. A lot of people don't know there was a coup attempt in Panama City. That's in the book. And we had 2 guys in the building when 120 of them came in the building to try and take it. That's in the book.
Holy crap.
And then I went to SF Command for a while, staff, which there's not much to tell there. From there, I went to first in Okinawa.
What? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, no.
I just
want to hear. Yeah.
First in Okinawa, all the forward deployed battalions in those days had a mission where the normal A team that goes out and does A team stuff, but there's one company that you set up for hostage rescue. The theory being we have national assets that we are not allowed to name. They're out there. We don't talk about that, but they're in one place and it takes them a long time to get anywhere. So you got special forces that are forward deployed all over the place. So especially in Okinawa, we've got one company that we trained up for hostage rescue just so we had somebody to get there before the big guys could show up. And I was in that company. Now, that company had what we called a long hair team. And those are guys, you grow your hair long, you wear civilian clothes, and you go out as DOD personnel. You don't say you're civilians, but you don't say you're in the military. The idea being we're going to go to all the embassies and we're going to take a look at things. And if we ever have to come in there, how are we going to get in? How are we going to get back out? And just get the lay of the land kind of deal. So long hair team, one of the things we got asked to do was to go to the Republic of Korea when we thought Korea was going to invade. It looked like it was going to happen. This was during the Clinton administration.
Okay.
We didn't want to go because we're a secret unit. And there's people, there's a lot of American soldiers in Korea who know us. So it's going to be real hard to pretend like we're not military among all of these guys. But they said, do it. Go look at their NEO plan. Long story short, we took a look at it. State Department had volunteered to take out all the other embassies, people and their extended families. About 15,000 people hadn't told the military and didn't want to tell the military. So they wanted us to go see what the military's plan was, compare it to their plan, and then bridge the gap. And we did that. Wrote a report. They had to change the whole NEO plan. We weren't there, but State Department, along with the military, came up with this brilliant plan, and we went back where we were. And then that gets down to the last chapter in the book called Klingons. And that's the boys in the black body armor that if all things go to shit, it's SWAT. Think about a SWAT team.
Right.
And breaching team and room clearing and fast roping and all that good stuff. Philippines had, in that time, it was a New People's Army, terrorist unit down there, communist-inspired terrorist unit. They took over the naval headquarters and took a bunch of admirals and generals hostage. And they had to go in and rescue. And their general in charge at the time said, boy, they started out the rescue effort by prepping the target with naval gunfire, which got them in, but unfortunately it also killed all the admirals. So they knew about Charlie Company, and they wanted us to come down and show them a better way to do room clearing. Now, this was right about the time that the Philippines under Aquino had said, we don't want the U.S. military, all U.S. military out. There will be no more U.S. military in here.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
So we went in secretly, and we went out to Fort Magsaysay, and we didn't have the equipment. They didn't have the equipment. They didn't have shoot houses. They didn't have anything. So we had to pull it out of our rear end. How are we going to do this? How are we going to put it together? We only had about 4 weeks to get them through to where they could do a demonstration for their president. Got there. They're sharp guys. They listened. They trained well. And we got everything set up. And that's how the Philippine SOCOM came to be. And then when you look at the cover of the book, the very last thing that I got to do with them, when Hong Kong was being handed back over to the People's Republic of China, we were the last unit to went in to train with the Hong Kong police.
Okay.
And on the cover of the book, that is the last American unit to train in Hong Kong doing fast ropes onto the deck of a cargo ship out of a Hong Kong police helicopter.
And that's where the photo comes from.
That's where the photo came from. I was standing on the bridge.
I think, so if I remember correctly, we showed, I'll bring it back up. This is the cover. We did share the cover, and we talked a little bit about it.
That's it.
And we talked about that you were going to tell us about this photo. And so that's this photo.
That's ODA 133 in the harbor of Hong Kong on about the last week before it was handed back over to the People's Republic of China. And the PRC was in the city at that time. They were out and about while we were out and about because we had to go to Fangling, which is actually outside of Hong Kong, about hours train ride away.
Wow, that is so the book is, again, I will endeavor to say it correctly, In the Shadows Between the Wars by Christopher Brewer. Chris, where can people get it? Obviously there's an audio book, and you said there's some, is it new editions coming out? Tell us where they can find it.
I'm having I'm having Amazon issues, really. For some reason, Amazon pulled the softcover book. We're still trying to get them to put it back up. The hardcover is on Amazon. The audio book is on Amazon.
Got it.
You really want to
find it on Amazon.
Yeah, you really want to get either the hard or the soft copy because that's got photos throughout it, and there's some pretty good photos.
Very cool.
Nice.
Well,
So,
go ahead, Chuck.
I was gonna say I watched the show The Unit while I was in the Marine Corps, and everyone's like, "You got to watch this shit; it's so cool." And it was about Delta Force and all that stuff in the Army. And you said something along the lines where you had to go in as DoD operators because you can't go as special forces. So I assume it's kind of something similar to like how the movie or that show portrayed a lot of those Delta operators. Where they had covers and no one really knew who they really were, who they really worked with. Was that like that a lot in the Army where no one really knew what you did unless they're the people in that specific unit because you had to go to do all these different things, quote unquote, undercover?
Cover is, a lot of people don't understand. Cover is pretty complicated because cover means that you have a different name. You have a different story of who you are, where you came from, what you do for a living. And when you have all of those things, there's a lot that you've got to remember, and there's a lot that can be checked on. So you have to backstop it. I've worked for Lockheed Martin in this particular place. There has to be someone sitting at a telephone in Lockheed Martin that when someone calls, did this guy work for you, that will know to say, oh, yes, he was here from this time to this time. So it takes a pretty extensive backup. Now, the agency and people like that do that. The guys at the national units will probably do something like that. But again, you've got to have a lot of infrastructure. For us, we'd go out and the basic thing was we called it an unclassified legend. And basically it's I'm going to look like something other than what I am.
Mhm.
And I'm going to say that I'm from DOD, which I am. I'm not going to say I'm from that part of DOD called Special Forces.
Right.
And since I've got long hair and I'm from DOD, you're going to assume that I'm a civilian, and I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. And so there's less to so it really comes down to keep your friggin' mouth shut.
Okay.
Do your job and get in, get out, and do what you got to do.
Well, there you go.
That makes sense.
And I had a friend who used to talk about his time in recon as if people even knew we were there, we had messed up, right? At some point the object is to blend in as much as humanly possible and never be found out.
When we were in Bogota, we had to come out of the compound to get up to the embassy just to get cash checks, get mail, that. So we do that pretty frequently.
Yeah.
And there's a lot in there about how you do that. How do you move around in a foreign country like that where there's people? We had a $25,000 bounty on our head, dead, 50,000 alive, if anybody could catch one of us and turn us over to the cartels. So you got to think about who you are and what you're doing when you're moving down the street. And I had somebody stop me one time and look at me. And in Bogota, you got a lot of tall, blonde hair, blue eyed people running around. It's a big city. But looked at me and says, "Where are you from? I know you're not Colombian because your Spanish isn't that good. Are you Canadian? Are you German?" And so, ja, ich bin in Deutschland. Sprechen Sie Deutsch? Ein bisschen. I said, "Oh, okay, well, do you speak English also?" "Well, I speak a little. Well, we can speak Spanish or English or whichever you wish." And I didn't say that I'm an American. It just that's not a good place to be an American.
Right.
So give them something to lead them to believe that what they think they see is true.
Think on your feet.
Think on your feet and keep moving.
Think outside the box.
One thing we found out in Bogota was that there's only so many people out at night. There's victims, there's cops, there's army, there's cartel, and there's crooks. And the crooks, you had a couple of varieties. You had ratero, that's a sneak thief, and you had ladrón. And the ladrón's your basic mugger. And the muggers are the guys that got the black leather jackets, the blue jeans, they're kind of standing back in the shadows. They're kind of checking things out. Who's on my block? Who are you? Where the fuck are you from? You realize this is my block here?
Mm-hmm.
So we were ladrones. We got black leather jackets because nobody fucks with the ladrón. And that's how we could move around through the city. Cops weren't getting out of the car, not down there. They were getting shot left and right.
See, Chuck, this makes so much more sense to me. So, and I know we're closing out. I just want to tell you this as we lead into the booking. I remember going to terrorism liaison officer training and meeting one of the instructors and having lunch with him one time, and he was a novelist who also previously, quote unquote, worked for the agency. And I was just picking his brain about it because I'd always, been fascinated by it. And he asked me what my assignment was, and I talked to him and I said, undercover narcotics. And he had asked me if I ever thought about working for the agency. And I said, "Oh, maybe in my younger years." Why? And he goes, "Because we love narcotics cops." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Number one, you guys know how to do an org chart. You know how to investigate an organizational chart. You know how to follow people around, make connections, know who's reporting to who's in charge. You know how to make an org chart."
Mm-hmm.
He goes, "Number two, you think on your feet, right? Like nobody can know your cops no matter where you go, what you do. But you can't always have a cover story. You have to just be able to improvise and And then he says, number 3, you work with informants. That's the same as developing assets. Like he's like, we love dope cops. They know exactly. And it's just funny that you say that, Chris, because a lot of what you're talking about are some of the principles of, in the narcotics operations with, maybe you don't have a big backstory. Maybe you just maybe you don't have a fake name. Just go with your own name, right? Like there's lots of different ways. And I find that fascinating. So
yeah, keep it simple, stupid.
Read the chapters on Panama, because you'll really relate to that, because we're a tripwire. And
right.
on top of that, by law, we were not allowed to run intelligence operations. We couldn't pay informants. We couldn't do any of that.
Right.
So we'd go out civilian clothes and we'd walk the streets. And number one, they're not going to hit you in the cartel or the quartel, the compound, because then they'll be accountable for that. They're going to hit you when you're on the street. So you never tell anybody when you're going out. You always take a different route. You keep moving. You stay in well-populated areas with lots of witnesses. So they're not going to be able to take a shot at you. And you see who comes up to you to talk to you, because the people are worried about the Norregistas coming back, and they'll come up and they'll drop dirt, everything they got. And I'm not collecting intel. I'm just walking through the community. People are talking to me, and then this is what I've got, and I report it back to the rear. And we did the same thing. We built up the network over time. I was walking late at night one time, and I came by this house that had 6 expensive cars lined up, and they had an iron fence all the way around it. And there's this big gnarly looking dude standing inside, long hair, beard, camouflage jacket, cut off sleeves. And he's standing inside there next to those cars, and he's grinning and looking at me. I said, okay, well, I got to see what the fuck this is. So I walked up to it, and I'm standing on the other side of the iron fence, and I'm talking to him and saying, how you doing? And I stuck my hand out to shake hands, made sure he put his hand through the fence, grabbed his right hand, and I've got my pistol on my right, but I got my Tonto in a sheath on my left. Got a good gorilla grip, and I said, okay, tell me, what are you doing here? Oh, I'm just guarding the cars. Okay. And where are you from? Oh, I'm from Panama City. Yeah, okay. And all the license plates are Panama City license plates. So I say, well, okay, and I let go of his hand. What you got in your other hand behind your back? And he pulls that hand out, and he puts down this machete that had been sharpened on both sides, throws it on the hood of the car, and he's still grinning. I said, okay, I'm just going to write these tag numbers down, and we'll find out who they are. Since you don't know them? No. You rode 4 hours from Panama City, and you don't know them? Well, I'm bad with names. It's cool. Wrote the tag numbers. We call that back into the rear.
Stuff.
Yeah. And all of our guys are doing this, just little tidbits of information. Then we started to build it up. And at those times, there were no cell phones, or very few cell phones. So you had landline telephones, and radios weren't that good. They were big, heavy things. But we had this little box that you could type into. It had a keyboard on it. And if you put some mouse skin around the speaker on one side, you could hold it up to a payphone, press a button, and it would send burst transmission through that payphone. And they could receive it at the other end, and they could decrypt it. So we were taking these little things and sending data back to the canal zone. We had a guy with a state-of-the-art Apple computer, had a 500 meg hard drive, and he was building the org charts. These 6 guys were here at this address on this date. Well, they were over here at this date. They are here at this date.
Yep.
And now you're starting to fill in names.
Yep.
And that's how we ultimately brought down that particular organization.
I could tell you it's something very similar, short, sweet. I talked to the dope dealer on the phone. The surveillance team watched the dope dealer walk out of his apartment, walk downstairs to the apartment below him. My phone rang. I talked to the dope dealer again. Now he was able to give me pricing and quantity.
Yeah, there you go.
It's not rocket surgery. It's police work.
Right.
Connect the dots.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it was just interesting. So anyway, Chris, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. The book, you want to tell again, Amazon.com. and both books are available, right? Is that
Well, there's
Old School Rangers?
There's an audio book on Old Scroll because I let that contract go. I'm going to open it up again with a new guy, or I'm going to put it out myself. I got some stuff I got to do to get back on the street.
All right, and then the other is In the Shadows Between the Wars.
Mm-hmm.
That is available in hardback and on Amazon, or try softback. He's working on it. Apparently, Amazon's being a pain in the butt. But that's Chris Brewer, and these have been 2 fun episodes, Chuck. I'm glad we had this going. And if you've got stories that you think are even as close to being as cool as some of this stuff, we want to hear from you. We want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to do your thing.
Oh yeah, thank you all today for tuning in. But actually, before we do that, we always do a dedication at the end of every episode. Today, Chris advised us that there's just a lot to dedicate to, so he doesn't want to single anyone out. So I've got the dedication today. Today goes out to Officer Eric Estrada. Police Officer Eric Estrada and Sergeant Lee Sorensen were shot and killed while responding to multiple 911 hang-up calls at a residence near 700 North and 200 East in Tremonton after 9 p.m. That's in Utah. One of the officers was talking to the resident in the home about a domestic dispute. A man exited the house with a gun, opened fire, and mortally wounded the officer. Another officer arrived as backup and was also shot and killed. A deputy and a canine from the Box Elder Community Sheriff's Offices were hospitalized with non-life-threatening injuries and after being shot while in their patrol vehicle. As additional officers arrived, bystanders convinced the man to surrender. Wow. He was arrested and charged with aggravated murder. Officer Eric Estrada had served with the Tremonton Garland Police Department for less than a year and previously served with the North Park Police Department, Box Elder County Sheriff's Office, and Logan City Police Department. He is survived by his wife and 2 children. Wow, that's rough. His age was 31. He has a tour of total of 8 years. His badge number is not available, but damn, that's rough.
Yeah, well, rest easy, brother. We've got it from here. And for those of you who do want to come on the show, reach out to us at booking.warstories@gmail.com or reach out to Dylan, our producer, through LinkedIn. If you want to just email us a question, mailbag.warstories@gmail.com. If you're hearing this, tune in for Locker Room Live tonight. And because we discussed that a while back. And we'll, till then, come home with your shield or on it.